Welcome to the Holistic Plastic Surgery Show. I'm Dr. Anthony Yoon, America's holistic plastic surgeon. Each week, we'll give you revolutionary tools and secrets from cosmetic medicine and alternative health to help you look and feel better than ever before. Are you ready to live a new, healthier, and more beautiful life? If so, then let's get started. Are you one of the millions of Americans who are dealing with thinning hair? Maybe you've applied Rogaine, or you've taken Propecia, or even worn hair pieces to try to hide it. Well, in this podcast, I've got some natural solutions for you on how to thicken your hair without surgery. But before we get to it, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Moonface22. Moonface22 left me a nice review of this podcast on iTunes, stating that I love watching his YouTube reaction videos, and now I'm glad to have found his podcast. Well, thank you so much, Moonface22, for this nice review. And if you've been enjoying this podcast, if you could just take 2 minutes of your time to leave a rating or review on iTunes, it definitely helps me to spread the word. All right, well, let's talk about how to thicken your hair without surgery. So I'm sure you've all heard of Rogaine, and there are men's and women's Rogaine that you can buy now over the counter. And Propecia is also a medication that men can typically take also for thinning hair. But what are some of the other things that you can do that are natural that maybe aren't quite so obvious? Well, there are millions and millions of Americans who are dealing with thinning hair. And it's men and women, it's all ages and types. And there are a number of different causes of it, and there are a number of different ways to treat it short of getting actual hair transplants. Now, I have done some previous podcasts with a hair transplant expert, Dr. Alan Bauman, previously. So if you're interested in learning about hair transplant surgery, I would encourage you to listen to some of those podcasts. But if you're looking for some natural solutions, let's get into them because some of these can definitely help. So the first thing, and this is really for everybody that they should do, if you're noticing that your hair is thinning, and this is a situation where maybe you don't have a family history of it, you just are like, wow, why is my hair kind of falling out? Look at the stress that you have in your life. There is a condition called telogen effluvium, where stress can precipitate loss of hair. So the first thing you want to look at is look at how much stress is in your life. Now, we've had a lot of stress over the last year or so with COVID, with people losing jobs, and with being afraid of getting sick. And so it's not surprising if you have developed some thinning hair throughout this time, possibly because of stress. So the ways to treat this, some of these are kind of obvious. The first thing is if you've got some stress issues going on and you think it may be affecting your hair, is I encourage you to seek a therapist, seek counseling, because it can really, really help so many people. Some other things you can do would be meditation. Meditating, and even just meditating 5 to 10 minutes a day can make a huge impact on your stress level throughout the day. And I really, a lot of people say, seriously, like what can 10 minutes of just sitting down in a quiet room, paying attention to your breathing, what can that seriously do to, my life and to my day? And if you do it, you will be amazed at just what that simple act of sitting down for 10 minutes in a quiet room and paying attention to your breathing, what that can do for your sleep and for your stress level, and maybe what it might be able to do for thinning hair as well. There are a lot of other ways that people de-stress: exercising, yoga, talking to friends, maybe even doing some traveling and things like that. Look at your life, and if you've got thinning hair, try to determine whether stress may be a potential cause of it. And if it is, once again, would encourage you to take those steps to try to reduce the stress in your life. And I think you'll see some improvements, not only in the thickness potentially of your hair, but also in how your skin looks and how quickly you age as well. All right, well, my number 2 suggestion, and I recommend basically what I'm giving you are 5 different suggestions, and I recommend you do it in the order that I'm giving them to you, okay? Because we're going to go from the easiest, from the, let's say, least expensive or least extensive or invasive to more extensive, more expensive, more invasive. So the first one obviously is to de-stress, but the second one is to consider nutritional supplements. Now, there are a number of potential vitamin and different deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies, that may contribute to thinning hair. Deficiencies like iron deficiency is not uncommon in people who have thinning hair. Deficiencies, let's say, in vitamin D, that also can potentially contribute to it. So there is a supplement called Nutrafol, and Nutrafol is a supplement that's specifically formulated for people who have thinning hair. And these supplements we sell at my online store, yoonbeauty.com. And Nutrafol, I don't make it. It's a company that specifically makes these supplements. And they have 3 different kinds that we sell and that we recommend. There's one for women, there's one for men, and there's one called Women's Balance. So the women's supplements are separated into the basic women's, which are typically for women who are pre-menopause, and Women's Balance are for women who are post-menopause. And then men is just men. And these are pills that you take, nutritional supplements that you take every day, and you give it some time. It can take a couple of months, but they have studies that do show a significant improvement in thinning hair by taking these nutritional supplements. And so once again, I sell them at my online store, yoonbeauty.com. It's one of our top nutritional supplement sellers, our Nutrafol, and it's something that I think can really, really help a lot of people. We get very, very few people return their Nutrafol product to us for refunds. Although we do have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if it wasn't helping them, you would think that at some point, or if, let's say they were making them sick, they would send them back, but we get very few of this sent back. So Nutrafol, nutritional supplement, would strongly encourage you. You may have heard of biotin. Biotin's kind of the most common nutritional supplement that people take for thinning hair. Nutrafol contains biotin in it. And there are so many other things, like I mentioned, iron earlier, vitamin D. There are other supplements that you can consider. The easiest thing is just to pick up Nutrafol because it works. And so that's what I would recommend. So what do you do if the stressing doesn't seem to be helping, the nutritional supplements don't appear to be helping enough? Well, now you look at maybe potential topicals. There was a study that compared topical rosemary oil to Rogaine, aka minoxidil, and how it helped with thinning hair. Well, Rogaine is super popular. I'm sure you've heard of it. But this study actually head-to-head found that topical rosemary oil had the same results to improve thinning hair as Rogaine, believe it or not. And topical rosemary oil, obviously being natural, you want to combine it with a carrier oil. And you can buy topical rosemary oil online. And this is something that can potentially help. Now, it actually also found that topical rosemary oil had less scalp irritation than minoxidil, aka Rogaine. And so you may be able to get a natural treatment without, the fact that it's not a pharmaceutical. Plus, you have potentially less irritation of your scalp if you use topical rosemary oil. So if you want more information, I would just encourage you, just Google rosemary oil for thinning hair online. You'll find a lot of information online, people who can walk you through how they recommend that you apply it. But if you're looking to take the next step after the nutritional supplements, then the rosemary oil is the way to go. Okay, so you're de-stressing, you're taking your Nutrafol, and you're applying rosemary oil, and you want to do something else. What do? Well, the next step would be low-light laser treatments. Low-light laser treatments you may have seen in the past. You may have seen, there used to be an infomercial, and honestly, I don't watch commercials anymore because I usually DVR TV shows or I watch them without commercials. So I don't know if they're still playing or not, but there's something called the Hair Max laser comb. And it's this kind of comb with a low light laser in it that you would run through your hair. And that was really one of the first affordable versions of low light laser therapy. There have been many studies that have looked at low light laser therapy for thinning hair. And these studies have almost all shown a beneficial effect of these treatments. For some reason, exposing your scalp to these cold lasers, meaning that they don't heat the scalp or anything like that, but exposing these cold lasers appear to cause the hair follicles to go into a growth phase. I don't know why. There's people who say, oh, maybe the laser helps to, power the mitochondria. I'm not sure, but the studies do show it appears to help. Now, there are a lot of other versions that, unlike, let's say, the Hair Max laser comb, there are actual laser caps where they look like baseball caps, but if you lift them up and look inside of it, on the undersurface, it's filled with these lasers that you put onto your scalp. There's another one that looks like kind of like a hairband that you put over your scalp as well. They do get pretty expensive, the nicer ones that you buy, but would encourage you that if these other natural things aren't helping, then the low light laser therapy is the next step. And once again, studies do appear to support that they can really help. So now that you're doing low light laser therapy and you say, well, geez, I want to do something else, but I don't want to undergo a hair transplant, what else can you do? Well, platelet-rich plasma is a way to help to stimulate, once again, growth of those hairs. None of these treatments are going to grow hair in a bald area. So if you've got a large bald spot, then it's unlikely, honestly, that you're going to get hair growth in those areas no matter what you do with these treatments. I mean, it's still worth trying, but it's unlikely that they're going to do anything. They really are for areas that are thinning, but not that are completely gone. And that's when you want to consider hair transplant. But before you do that, platelet-rich plasma, this is basically injections into the scalp of your own plasma. So what we do is we would basically draw your blood, spin out the platelets, which is chock full of growth factors, and you inject that into the scalp. And there are studies that are being done and that have already shown that the thinning hair seems to improve. Now, these treatments are not do not create a permanent result. If you stop doing the PRP, then the hair will most likely thin again. But they aren't something that you have to do more than 2 or 3 times a year. And they do, once again, appear to help. I know a lot of surgeons, actually, that are my age who are injecting this PRP into their own scalps to thicken their hair. I, however, am so fortunate that my hair is pretty full and I don't need it, but some of my buddies are doing it to themselves and finding some nice changes. So before you proceed to surgery, PRP can be a very, very good option for you. And once again, you want to save actual surgery for if you want to, let's say, change where your hairline is or you've got true balding. The place to start, so if you've been doing these things and you're like, I don't know, it's not working, I'm thinking I want to, get the PRP or I want to consider hair transplant, then you want to start by seeing a dermatologist. They're usually the first step with this type of thing. And there are hair transplant centers that are across the country. If you're thinking about hair transplant, I encourage you to consider follicular unit extraction. If your doctor is not doing follicular unit extraction and they're still cutting strips of scalp from the back of people's heads, then you want to ask why they're not doing FUE. FUE, follicular unit extraction, is a technique for hair transplant surgery that leaves very minimal scarring and really at this point is the way to go. But before you get there, try these things first. De-stressing, Nutrafol, topical rosemary oil, low light laser treatments, and maybe some PRP. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you. If you've been enjoying this podcast, if you could just take 2 minutes of your time to leave a rating or review on iTunes, it definitely helps me to spread the word. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Dr. Anthony Yoon. I'm known as America's Holistic Plastic Surgeon, and this is the Holistic Plastic Surgery Show. Remember to eat real food, use clean skincare, and only consider actual plastic surgery as a last resort.